analyst John Dadian.
Yeah.
He joins us this morning to discuss all things political. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Haven't had you on our Sunday morning show in quite a while. We've kind of had a lot going on, so I do want to recap this health care reform, or the law being upheld by the Supreme Court. And politically speaking, what's been the biggest shocker, the biggest thing that you've noticed in the last week?
Well, I think people, especially political analysts, try to say who won and who lost, whether it be the public, whether it be the politicians. Politically speaking, I think both political sides won on this one. Obama can claim, I've done something presidents have tried before, couldn't do, I'm the one who got it through. Republicans says, okay, we told you so, this is what's happening now, and they've got a solid now piece to grab onto, and a lot of people are responding to that. The fundraising for both the Republican National Committee and for the Romney campaign went through the roof after the Supreme Court ruling, so really both sides won on this one.
Okay.
Talk about local politics. We haven't had you on really since the June primary, and your thoughts on the mayor's race now as we move forward, and Mr. Filner and Mr. DeMaio.
Again, what they refer to this, both locally and nationally, is the dog days of summer, et cetera. People are going on vacations, it's hard to focus, et cetera. So really what the local campaigns are doing quite a bit is they're trying to get organized, because it is a completely different campaign than the primary. In the primary, it was a shotgun approach. They had several opponents that they had to make sure didn't get close to them in the polls. But now it's a rifle approach. And really what they're concentrating on is the fundraising. You've heard me say many times, you need two things in a campaign. You need a good message. Both these candidates have a good message for their prospective campaigns, but you need to have the resources to get the message out, so they're concentrating on fundraising heavily.
So we know, coming out now in terms of the Bonnie Dumanis and Nathan Fletcher, does it matter who they get behind? We probably know who Bonnie Dumanis is going to get behind in Carl DeMaio, but we don't know with Nathan Fletcher. Does it matter? Does the public really care in terms of going forward who they support?
It matters a little, I would say not a lot, in the sense that it's not going to, the campaign's not going to turn on it, et cetera. But I would not make any assumptions as far as who anybody's going to go for, because when people think, do they endorse or not endorse, another factor, keep in mind another option is they could just sit on their hands and be quiet, and that would send a strong signal.
That's true, but right after the June primary, the Republican Party came out in support of Bonnie Dumanis, so that you would assume that Bonnie would then support the Republican candidate.
Yeah.
Again, in my business, I don't assume anything, Jeff, because I've seen stranger things happen.
Yeah.
But clearly, here's the direct answer to your question. Clearly, would either of the mayoral candidates in the general want either of those two endorsements? Absolutely, without a doubt. But again, if they don't get it, is that going to turn the campaign? I've always predicted, and I stick by this, that I haven't seen any change. It's going to be an extremely close race. And again, similar to the presidential, one of the highest fundraising races we've ever seen. It's going to break all kinds of records for the mayor race in San Diego.
Let's talk about November, John. And you know, for the June primary, we saw historic low voter turnout. But we have some national issues. Let's talk about voter turnout here in San Diego, because this is a big mayor's race. There's a lot of implications on the line for this city. There's a lot of things people are just downright frustrated with. And then you have this national race involving the economy and healthcare. What do you see happening in November? I mean, this is getting really, really big.
Oh, absolutely. And in addition to everything that you just stated, there are a couple other races that will affect other races as far as turnout, as far as partisan politics. For example, the one you've been reporting on a lot is the Bilbray race. The reason that's so important is not only our little, 5-member delegation here for San Diego, but that possibly could affect the House.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, and that will affect, as you saw, that could affect for years to come, whether or not a veto happens, whether or not health care passes, et cetera. So both parties nationally are looking at this little San Diego race. Now, because of that, Democrats are concentrating on getting for that congressional district the vote out, which means that's a good portion of that congressional district is in the city of San Diego. So that will affect the mayor's race, and that will affect the presidential race, because Obama supporters who really love him and kind of wondering who's running for Congress or mayor, once they're at the polls, will do it. So it's kind of the domino theory.
We expect a larger turnout in the general election. It's presidential election. Voter turnout is much higher. But in the primary, that's a big problem with low voter turnout. When there are so many big issues at stake, how do you get people to turn out? What is the secret? I know it's a big question, but it's got to get better, doesn't it? Especially in apathetic San Diego.
Well, one thing political scientists look at, is, especially in the national elections, is what they call realignment. And it doesn't happen that often. Realignment happened when FDR won because we were in such a Great Depression. Ronald Reagan, we saw in the 80s. And that definition of realignment was a lot of Democrats who never voted for a Republican before voted for Reagan. So that was a realignment. And they were hoping 4 years ago that Obama would be a realignment. And I don't think we've really seen that yet. People voted because they liked him, but they didn't necessarily completely change their voting habits. I think I have no problem with low voter turnout, quite honestly. And again, a lot of political scientists disagree with me because I believe that is a choice. They're making a conscious choice. As long as, and we've had problems in this country early on, as long as everybody has an equal right to vote and equal access to vote, which wasn't always the case in this country, I have no problem that anybody who wants to stay home feels not necessary. Let the informed voters vote.
It's their choice.
It is their choice.
And that is a different take on it.
What a country.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
Well, John,
you, John
great to
Dadian.
have you
Very
today.
good.
Thank you for coming in, as always. And,
Enjoy the rest
we'll
of your Sunday.
I think I will.
All right.
We'll check in with you a few more times, I think, before November.
It's getting exciting.
Yes. All
Thanks,
right.
John.